Ghous, thank you for joining the podcast.
James, good to be here. Took a while, but finally got it.
I'm so excited for you to be here. Honestly, I've mentioned this to you before, but in terms of guests that I've wanted to have on this, you've been my white whale for a while, actually, for a few different reasons. One, I really love speaking with you. You know, we've known each other for a number of years now. But two, and this is what a sort of a central theme of this episode, you have one of the most coveted roles in the security industry, and you do that at one of the most prestigious VCs in the security industry. So I'd love just to begin with you maybe explaining for the audience, what is an operating partner in security for a VC firm?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So before I embarked on this journey with Notable Capital, I did a lot of research. I talked to pretty much anybody that I could get a hold of that was sitting kind of in a similar role that I'm sitting in now, and what their job entailed, both on the venture side and private equity, because I was interested in private equity as well. And everybody I met, I didn't get the same answer from the people. Everybody was doing something different. So at the end of the day, I think what it comes down to is, what is the firm looking for? What's important for them? And then what value can you add, right, as a security leader, as a CISO? And for Notable, it was different than it was for the next venture firm. And so there's a lot packed into this role, to be honest with you. And again, it varies from firm to firm. There's no job description for this. There wasn't one. I had to create my own. And I had to work with the partners at Notable to kind of align on expectations and so forth. And so at a high level, my case may be different than others, like I said. So at a high level, there's 4 buckets that I work in every day in and day out. The first one is to obviously help the portfolio companies, whether they're security or non-security. Security ones are mostly self-sufficient. It's the non-security ones that need a little bit more help, but to really just help them just establish the basics of security and compliance, the table stakes stuff, build the foundation, help them build the foundation. And that's easy enough because I've done advisories. I've built security programs for startups. I've helped scale ups and things like that. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is obviously just helping to secure our own environment. Like, we have LP data, financials. We have a brand that we need to protect. We have our LP's brand that we need to protect as well. So again, that's just table stakes. It comes with the role wherever you go. And I wanted to stay grounded and connected to the community as well, and not just be seen as a VC. That was very important for me.
Yeah.
The third one I would say is, and this is the fun part now, sourcing deals. I get a lot of inbound still, even now, more so than before. Sometimes founders want to talk to me. They want to pitch ideas. They want to see if Notable would be interested. And if I see something viable, I would bring the investment team in and we go from there. And then I also help with due diligence and kind of help bridge the gap, in terms of our thesis, investment thesis, and what the target company that we're looking at in terms of diligence, what they bring to the table from a market perspective. And then I would say the last one is, this is also the fun part, is post-investment advisory. So when we invest in a company, especially on the cyberspace, which is my expertise, and we have expertise across the board on our platform team. But from a cyber perspective, these founders, or especially early stage founders, they want to build generational companies. And so they need a lot of help up front in terms of go to market, right? Product market fit, features and capabilities, integrations, pricing, how to sell to CISOs of, SMB to mid-market versus enterprise, right? Depends on what their ICP is. Even if I don't even know if sometimes they know their ICP, right? That you figure that out with them. So really, I become an extension of the team, to be honest with you. And I just help them wherever help is needed. Events, host events, write articles, blog posts, you name it. So those are the 4 primary buckets. And I'm not going to profess and say everybody in this role, every firm does all these 4 things.
Yeah.
There may be other things that they do that I don't do, but again, it all really depends on what the firm is looking for and what value you can bring to the table.
I think that the reason so many security leaders are attracted to these kind of roles is that kind of variety. But there's also, in order to, I think, even be remotely close to being qualified to do a role like this, somebody has to have had a certain diversity of experiences. And I suppose it'd be great to kind of dive back into your previous career. If you're watching this as a security leader or even a security engineer at the beginning of your career and you're thinking that's the job that I want, and you were to reverse engineer that journey, how did you get into security to begin with?
I'll summarize it really quickly. I could spend an hour on this section alone, but I got my start in development. When I got out of college, I was doing some development work. I didn't really like it too much. I was more of a macroscopic person. I wanted to see and touch things. And so I gravitated towards systems integration and worked for one of the big four, big five back then on the consulting side. So I traveled quite a bit, helping large enterprise clients with their information technology needs. And there wasn't really security back then. Security only came about when we started to do virtual private networks, which was the thing. Kind of dating myself now a little bit, but at the end of the day, that's how I got started in security. And that just kind of grew into doing network administration, network architecture for large scale clients in the telecom space and manufacturing and things like that. I got tired of the consulting life, to be honest with you. A lot of travel, as you can imagine, and not much time at home. So I went down the path of enterprise, and I started to work with companies like Oracle, Informatica, and GE to help build their security capabilities, and as well as just kind of bring that consulting kind of pedigree into building and the foundation of security teams as a anchor. That led to probably the second half of my career, which was focused more on product and cloud. And so that's where, right after GE, I started to work with more startups, some venture backed, some private equity backed owned. But at the end of the day, it also allowed me to start working with founders who were building cybersecurity companies, as well as venture firms. So, and this is what I tell people when they ask me how do I get my start and where do I start? I tell them, start to give up a little bit of your time on a daily basis, weekly basis. Just help people. Just be helpful. Don't ask for anything in return. Give them 30 minutes. Give them another 30 minutes if you have conviction and you believe in them and you want to hear if they took your advice to heart and they made some changes. Let them come back and tell you more about it. And so as I was working with startups, private equity backed companies, still young companies, I started to also do this on the side as well. Obviously making sure there's no conflicts of interest or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it was totally acceptable with our ethics and compliance teams internally. And that opened up a lot of opportunities for me. That allowed me to work, like I said, with venture firms, advise them and their investments and help them in terms of post-investment. And one thing led to another, and I got a lot of inbound, and I had to start being selective in who I helped and who I work with, just from a pure time perspective. So at the end of the day, it was all about my network, the people that I helped who came back and helped me in terms of trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. But I knew that I wanted to take all this experience as an operator, as an investor, and as an advisor and package it all up. And the goal for me was really to figure out what can I do with all this?
Yeah.
And outside of private equity, venture kind of fit that mold. And so I said, why not just package this up and work for a firm? And so I started talking to the firms that I used to work with, Notable being one of them, very close with the partners here. And they had a need. They were growing their cyber portfolio and had a lot of great companies that they're investing in. But they just needed that help from a CISO perspective to help them bridge the gap between what they're building in the market and then be an extension of their team, as well as the firm and be more secure and compliant as well.
And would you be able to describe for the audience what is Notable Capital and why do they play an important role in the security investment ecosystem?
Yeah, good question. So Notable Capital was formerly known as GGV. When we broke off with our Chinese counterparts, I think it was 23 sometime, we formed Notable Capital beginning of 24. So we've been known as Notable Capital. So it's not a brand new firm. It's been in existence for a long time. Partners have been here for over decades. And so we just rebranded to Notable Capital. So we're I would say we're a multi-stage venture firm focused obviously on cybersecurity, a large portfolio of cybersecurity companies, enterprise software, infrastructure, data, AI.
Mm.
right? AI native companies. Our AUM is probably north of 5 billion or so.
Hmm.
But we bring more than capital to the table. Something that is
Mm.
probably not as well known, and probably need to do a little better job of it, is we bring operating expertise.
Mm.
Folks like myself. So
Yeah.
we have, I am the security expert on the team. We have entrepreneur in residence as well. We have a team called the platform team that has expertise in marketing and talent acquisition,
Yeah.
communication, business development. So we really basically roll up our sleeves and we become, again, as a team, we become an extension of the team that we're investing in to help them kind of get up on their two legs, on their 2 feet, and then we let them go from there.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different than traditional, venture approach where they just sell money, right?
Yeah.
So that's been very lucrative and very attractive, I think, for cyber companies and others alike that don't have the wherewithal right out of the gate to go build a marketing team, for example, or to go hire, right? We become, their talent team. We become their marketing team.
Yeah.
We become their business development team, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it's definitely a trend that VC companies are becoming more hands-on with the businesses that they invest in. It seems like a trend generally for professional services firms. I can say in the recruitment industry, we're seeing something similar. I want to talk about the investment aspect of the role,
Mhm.
but just a bit of the role that I also find really interesting. You do enterprise security for Notable itself. And you talked about yourself as somebody who thinks very macroscopically, and it sounds like it's your kind of breadth of being able to see the big picture is a big part of why you're successful in this role. Do you find though that kind of running that enterprise security program, I think you said it kind of keeps you grounded in the community. Do you feel like that's an important part for you personally in terms of staying connected to how this industry actually works at a nuts and bolts level?
Yes and no. So we have a really bright team internally that does the operation day to day security IT, and so they're pretty self sufficient. I don't have to do too much, to be honest with you.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, we're not a development shop, so I don't have to worry about product security. But we have the same challenges everybody else. We have the same tech stack that we run, and so from that perspective, it helps me, like I said, stay grounded and know what's top of mind. We do tabletop exercises on an annual basis. We have data protection. We have, like I said, the full stack.
Mm.
Um, but where I think a role like this is really successful is being able to apply what the person has learned over the past, whatever, 5, 10, 15 years, however long they've been working as a security operator and
Mm.
a leader, along with the business acumen that they've built to help their sales teams scale, to help reduce the friction in that sales cycle, to
Mm.
talk to boards, to talk to regulators. This is where I think all that experience kind of comes to the head, in terms of like bring it all together and focusing on helping one company at a time,
Mm.
a portfolio company that is, because they go through the same challenges, same growing pains when it comes to cybersecurity. Believe it or not, their biggest challenge right now here in one of our portfolio companies, I think it was, the founder said, we don't have a problem in identifying, prospects and leads and doing POCs and POVs
Mm.
and scaling. Where we have problem right now is we can't seem to get, for example, past the customer's third-party risk process.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and this is really true for today's AI native companies.
Yeah.
Because right now, if you ask enterprises, right, whether it's SMB, mid market, up market, enterprise companies, they're one of their biggest trepidation. And the numbers are out there. Everybody can look at it, right? The
Mm.
biggest trepidation right now and hesitation in adopting technologies that have AI, right, that are using models, that are using agents and MCP and things like that. Their biggest trepidation right now is security and compliance,
Mm.
um, and data exfiltration, data exposure, data really are around data mostly,
Yeah.
because that's still gold. And so they really put these young AI native companies to test, and they ask really hard questions, and a lot of them are not ready. So what we're seeing, and this is again one of those four buckets that I talked about, what we're seeing is those that sit in my role really trying to help those companies and show them, what's important to these potential customers, these prospects,
Yeah.
and how to, have not just check the box, but how to have proper security in place so that they could pass those initial audits, those security assessments, because
Yeah.
they could have the best product out there, right? Like a lot of these GPT, Anthropic, all
Yeah.
these models that came out, they had, really great capabilities and features and really, help with innovation. But guess what? A lot of companies didn't adopt them right away because of their security concerns. And so
Yeah.
the AI native companies that we invest in, face the same challenges. So I'm finding that, early on, they're building these security capabilities, this the foundation, getting their SOC 2, getting their ISO, getting the necessary credentials they need to be able to attract those customers. And it's not just large enterprises; it's mid
Mm.
market, it's SMBs that are
Mm.
also asking those hard questions. So my point in all this is that, you know, somebody like myself that's sitting in this type of role has to
Mm.
bring all that wherewithal that they've accumulated over time, and how to
Mm.
help sales teams sell faster, right? Reduce the friction in that sales cycle, make things more automated and repeatable and sustainable and scalable, so
Yeah.
that the security teams don't have to answer, a 300 question questionnaire all the time. That's where the value is in somebody like me coming into
Yeah.
a role like this and helping those portfolio companies to be able to sell fast, right, with security and compliance in mind.
And so it's clear for everybody, your role as an operating partner is not just focused on helping these, whatever is the kind of latest security company understand their market and sell to customers. It's much broader than that. It's all, tech firms that you invest in at the moment. Obviously, a lot of those are AI businesses, and you're there right from day one saying, well, if you want to sell this successfully, here are the boxes you're going to need to check. Here's the way that you're going to have to integrate with your customers' environments, and that's the experience that you're bringing to the table.
Exactly. So I can think of three or four companies right now in different stages that I'm going through that with them currently. And again, the specific task or project or whatever we might want to call it differs, right? They come at different times. Some are, more immediate needs. Some are more, midterm. Some are long term. But it just varies, based on what the company really needs. In one
Mm.
case, one of our portfolio companies, AI native, accounting, they wanted to put an article out for CFOs that could really understand the company's security and compliance and how they protect data, so that
Mm.
they can have meaningful conversation with their own CISOs when they bring this company into their organization to
Yeah.
adopt. So really kind of helping from a business perspective, right? And then on the
Mm.
flip side, the company I'm working with that, has a need to really articulate how, not just from a compliance perspective, they have the
Mm.
SOC 2s, they have the trust centers and everything.
Mm.
Very young company. Really
Mm.
surprised what they have, but they needed it because, they're being
Mm.
scrutinized. But I told them, I said, you need to go one step below what you have out there. You need to have,
Mm.
articles, white papers. You really need to show in a discreet and confidential way how you make the sausage, how you keep their data
Mm.
safe. And I gave them some examples. And so I'm working with them in terms of positioning themselves a little bit better in the marketplace, so that the perception is not that, hey, they have this the security and compliance,
Mm.
boxes checked, but we really don't know internally how they do things. So I asked them to kind of open up a little bit more and be honest. And like some of the other large AI companies that
Mm.
they don't have everything figured out. Nobody
Mm.
has everything figured out in the age of AI. We're
Mm.
figuring it out as we go. And
Mm.
that's the position that I told them to take. Be vulnerable, but
Mm.
understand that let your prospects and clients, customers know that
Mm.
you still have work to do, and you're going to partner with them, and you're going to do it, and you're going to make sure
Mm.
that what they're adopting from you is safe and secure to use.
I think I'm right in saying you took this role closer to I think the beginning of this AI revolution. Did you anticipate this part of your job being such a big and important part of the job? Like, would you
Mm.
say a notable invests in like a non AI, SaaS
Mhm.
business? Is it significantly harder to sort of understand and get in place the right things in terms of security for an AI company because it's new technology versus those sort of, I guess, more kind of well-trodden paths?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, if you ask me, Did I know what I was going to do today a year ago? I would say, no way.
Yeah.
Um, like I said before, in this type of role, this is not a role where you sit and you wait for something to come to you. You have to figure out, like, okay, what are the opportunities in any portfolio company, whether it's cyber or vertical SaaS or
Mm,
AI native, whatever the case, or even consumer. We have some consumer companies too that we've invested in. You have to find those opportunities and figure out where you can help the company, so that you can help your firm, so you can help your LPs become successful. And so
mm,
you have to think of it that way. You can't just think of it, okay, I just need to have like really great security for this company so that they can go
mm,
out and sell. No, it's more around, how do I help them generate more revenue, whatever that happen, whatever that entails. Kind of like what you
mm.
would do as a traditional CISO sitting in your company, and you're trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to be just a cost center. I want to be,
Yeah.
out there working with the sales team. I want to be able to put security products out there. I want to be able to do things that can, differentiate us in the marketplace, so that, clients, customers come to us versus our competitors.
Yeah.
So you have to take that kind of thinking, hopefully you have it, and bring it and apply it into this type of into this type of environment. But
Yeah.
it's done differently. It's not done the same way. And so you have to be able to, context switch really quickly and figure out how to do that with not
Yeah.
just one, not just two, not just three, but dozens and dozens of portfolio companies. And so
Yeah.
prioritization, all these things become key aspects. Yeah, but at the end of the day, this is not a role. Like I said, there was no job description for this.
Yeah.
I do things today that I didn't think I was going to do when I joined, and that's okay,
Yeah.
because this is why I took this role, because I didn't want to just take my template that I had in building security programs, go to the next fintech and the next health
Yeah.
tech and stamp
Yeah.
it there. That wasn't
Yeah.
as exciting for me.
Yeah.
What's exciting for me was to take on a new challenge and like stretch my boundaries and learn different things and be able to apply what I've done in the past in a different way, in a more meaningful way, to help other companies. So I just felt like I could make a bigger impact in this type of role versus going into another, CISO role at another company.
Yeah, particularly at this point of time because of exactly what we've just talked about as well, right? But the value of being able to hold companies' hands through those early few stages and the work that you do, I mean, critical to those businesses, right? Like if they don't get that right, they could be dead within 6 months. Let's talk about the security businesses, and obviously there's some overlap there because most security companies getting funding now have some sort of AI component to them. You said that kind of people still reach out to you from the founding community. How does it work at Notable? What is the sort of most common way that Notable becomes aware of somebody who has an idea for a security product?
Oh, there's a lot of different ways. I think the key thing, I think, for any firm is to identify founders. And they don't have to be like repeat founders, but identify really smart people that have great ideas, that can execute, and be able to work with them before anybody else does. That's the key. And so a lot of different firms go about it different ways. Some use, data and AI and analytics. Others use just their network, their relationships, and
Mm,
then everything in between. But at the end of the day, you know, you have to find those generational founders that know how to build and know they have ideas come and go, right?
mm,
Ideas only as good as how well you execute the idea.
mm,
So, there's a saying in the VC space, right? You bet on the jockey, not the horse. You probably heard of this before.
mm,
And so that's very true. You bet on the founders and what they've done in the past, because that's your only indication of
mm,
how successful they may be in the future. And obviously, you do your due diligence, you do your reference checks, but you
mm,
have to get to them early on, and then you have to also, like I
mm,
said, provide them, let them know what value you bring to the table as a venture firm. If you're going to back them, if you're going to invest capital, money is relatively still inexpensive, and they can find money anywhere, right?
mm,
And it's indicative of, look at some of the high valuations. It's indicative of how, I don't want to say like desperate, but how important some of these founders are to some of these investors.
mm,
But it's not all about the capital, right? It's about how you can help that team be successful. And
mm,
so in our case, we have that operating experience that we bring to the table. And when founders partner with us, what I love
mm,
hearing is, things like, "Hey Al, I have money from these other investors, and they don't do 1% of what you guys do for us,
mm,
right?" And so that's like music to my ears, right? Because that means we're doing something right. They're partnering with us for the right reason. They need help, and they know that we can become, roll up our sleeves and become part of the team. So, and then that just fosters, more brand awareness in the industry. It's the founder community, especially in the cyber space, is very small, much smaller than the security community and circles. So founders talk, venture firms talk when they see, somebody doing good work. Their recommendation and their references, very meaningful and helps build confidence in others that are looking for funding and the right venture firm to partner with.
And I think that kind of brings us back to the beginning of the conversation, where it feels like how these VC firms are evolving, their ability to platform whatever business that they're working with is almost as important as actually funding the operations. When you're working with a founder, because there are security founders who are first time founders, because you don't have this track record to look back at and go on, what at a high level are you looking for with those sorts of individuals? What kind of characteristics suggest success to you?
Yeah. Every firm, every partner kind of looks at this differently. They may have one thing that's more important than the other, relative to the next firm and the next partner or MD. But at the end of the day, just having some visibility now into how venture firms evaluate founders, right? They are looking for somebody who can, one, obviously execute. And if they don't have a track record, if they're, a new founder, what have they done in the past? Even in their, like, let's just say they're coming out of Google or someplace else, AWS. What have they done in the past? How successful were they? Obviously, there's reference checks and things like that. But I'm also seeing like founders have to be like very resourceful. They have to be very resilient and very resourceful. Like they're not going to have answers to everything right away in their fingertips, right? When they come across a problem, whether it's product market fit, marketing, especially early on, a lot of founders do founder-led sales, right? You can't be a technologist really good at, innovation and technology at the same time, be a good salesperson, right? There's two ends of the spectrum almost. And a lot of founders they struggle, with founder-led sales. You can give them a number of like introductions through our business development team, and you have really great top of funnel, but they don't know what to do with it. They can't close anything. And that's not their fault because that's not what they used to do. So, but having the ability to figure out how to scale, right? Maybe it's bringing, somebody less, senior into the team and at a fractional, kind of way to help kind of, keep the pipeline moving. They have to be resourceful is my point. And they have to be resilient because things are going to come up. They're going to have adversities. They're going to have, they're going to lose customers. They're going to have competition. They're going to get, candid feedback. So they have to have thick skin. All these things, these are attributes that make it. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton of stuff, but in my mind, from what I've seen in the more recent conversations, a little over a year that I've been here, that's what venture firms and partners are looking for: resourcefulness, resiliency, ability to overcome, ability to execute, be vulnerable, be honest to yourself. You don't have all the answers. Nobody's expecting you to have all the answers. And if you're going to fail fast and move on.
Yeah. And within resourcefulness, would you say that a big part of that is being prepared to ask for help from people like you, from your VCs, and get advice?
Yeah, no, for sure. The founders that I really enjoy working with are those that come to me and ask for help. I may not have all the answers. I may give some erroneous answers sometimes, but I want to have that dialogue. I don't want founders to just take what I give them and then go execute. That's not what I want. That's not what they should be doing. They should be asking questions. Okay, Al, you told me to go build this. Why? Why is that important? Or you want to we just had a conversation with one founder, trying to do a focus group and trying to provide some feedback for him and what he's trying to do on the agentic side. And, I said, okay, maybe we should bring like, CISOs that are using all these like innovative, AI powered tools like Riplet and Cursor and Claude. And he was like, no, we should bring, CISOs that don't use those tools because I want to know what the percentage is and how wide the gap is today. Right. Because there's a saying now in the market that a lot of these tools, a lot of these capabilities are just used in San Francisco, in the Bay Area here, in the bubble that we're in. right?
mm,
This AI bubble that we're not the traditional bubble
mm,
from an
mm.
investment perspective, but this little
Yeah,
circle that we're in here. And it's not the same in the Midwest. It's not the same in Europe. It's not the same in the Northeast.
yeah,
But, he was like, no, we need to figure out like who's using what and why. And so it's good to
mm,
have a mix of them. So that's the kind of dialogue that I like to have with founders, not
mm,
just, hey, this is how I think you should do it. And now go do it. And they just say, yes, I'll go do it.
yeah.
That's not very useful. That's not meaningful. It's not going to generate, the outcomes they're looking for either.
It's such an interesting point, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody articulate that, though, that San Francisco Bay Area tech community, there is a huge strength in that slightly sort of insular where
Mhm.
people can get very
Yeah.
excited about things, drive each other's passions, and bounce off each other. But when you think about actually trying to make a successful business and make money, there's more business even in the US outside of San Francisco than there
Oh,
is within it. How do you and we'll wrap up here in the next sort of few minutes or so, but how do you get founders to connect with the security community in Chicago and Ohio and Dallas and Boston and all
yeah.
of these other their customers? How do you do that?
Yeah, so that's one of my one aspect of my role that I really enjoy. You probably heard me say enjoy everything now by now, but that's why I'm in this role.
Yeah.
I, I folks like myself that have been in the industry I've been doing this for about 20 plus years, right? So I have a pretty wide network of colleagues, peers. I belong to certain different communities, whether it's Slack or online or virtual or physical, whatever the case. And so I always strive to get to know more people. And my goal is to not just help our portfolio companies, but at the same time, if I could be of help to them, talking to them about the stuff that we're talking about and guiding them through their career
Mm,
and their journeys, and if they're stuck in some rut someplace, those are the kind of dialogues that I want to have with new peers that I meet, new friends that I meet. And so for
mm,
me, it's really easy. I just tell them, hey, let's go and let's do an event in like Chicago or Minneapolis or Dallas. And so I have in my roadmap
mm,
for this year to go do these things and invite the people that I don't know in those regions, right? And bring a couple of portfolio companies and just have
mm,
like dialogue, just conversation, no selling,
mm,
right? All that stuff, happens, at a different
mm,
time, just to have like organic conversation and just talk about whatever's top of mind,
mm,
whether it's, agentic AI or, boys playing football or whatever the case, and foster relationship building and collaboration. And those lead to a lot of
mm,
good outcomes, not just, for the portfolio companies and getting a sale, but just making friends in the industry
mm,
and being
mm,
helpful to people. And, believe it or not, in a lot of these events that I either host or I attend, I learned so much more than just the security space, building personal relationships and
mm,
helping each other out, and life matters, that it's
mm,
unbelievable. And so, that's what keeps me going. And that's, what founders are also looking for, especially those that are like moving here
mm,
from Israel, right? Like
mm.
there's a big concentration of cyber founders that are
Yeah.
Israeli based. And for obvious reasons, they have to move to the US. And so they don't know everybody. They don't have a lot of friends here. They don't have a lot of connections. And
Yeah.
so, I become kind of that matchmaker to help them get connected with the community, whether it's San Francisco Bay Area or Chicago or New York or
Yeah.
Dallas, Miami, Southeast, wherever that might be. That's part of what I do. And that's the, one of the perks, the more enjoyable parts of the job.
Great. Two final questions for you to wrap up with, and my first is what qualities, what would you say, 5 qualities a successful operating partner in your role needs to have?
Um, yeah. So this is something that I reflect back on quite a bit now that I've been here a little over a year.
Mm,
I started January of 24, so I just had my anniversary, and so I reflected back over the holidays. I think the first thing is um, you have to be a go-getter, somebody that's self-sufficient, self-motivated, right? Like I
mm,
said, this isn't a job where you sit and you let people dictate what you should do, right? There's a lot of opportunities, more than you have time for.
mm,
So you have to find the ones that are important to the firm, to the founders, to the investors, and then prioritize. those whatever it is that you're doing, because you're not going to get everything done all the time. And for those that obviously do a good job in this role, you're going to become popular. Uh, Other founders are going to know about you, and they're going to reach out and they're going to want your help. And this is also the case in the private equity space. When you're dealing with hundreds of portfolio companies, you can't help all of them. I talk to peers in that industry a lot, and they tell me the same thing. So you have to be able to identify opportunities, right? Be a self-starter. You have to be able to prioritize. You have to be able to do the work yourself and be able to context switch. So I'll put those two in one bucket. Right? Context switching means 1 minute you're going to be helping with a SOC 2. The next minute you're going to be helping with an incident. The next minute you're going to be working with the go-to-market team, product marketing team, one of the companies, to be able to figure out how to, market their new capabilities. Maybe they're making a pivot. And then on the other side, you have to plan an event, right? So you're juggling all these things at the same time. And I'll be honest, it was a little bit of a learning curve for me at the beginning. And it took several months for me to be able to figure out, like, okay, the way I used to prioritize and compartmentalize things as a CISO was a lot different, because I had a team. I could delegate things. I could say, okay, John, you need to do this, and Jenny, you need to do this. And, I'll let you guys go. You just keep me abreast of what's happening, and if there's any issues or anything, so that I don't look surprised in front of the CEO. And I let them do their thing. But here, right, even though I have a great team on the platform side and IT and security side, there's a lot of things I have to do myself. So when I get for example, not to derail, and I'll go through a couple of other things, but when I'm talking to a peer who has a team of 1,000 or 300 people reporting to him or her, and they ask me, Al, I want to look into a role like yours, and I look at them, I'm like, you have never done anything yourself in the past 10 years. You've always delegated. You've worked with in large enterprises. I don't know if you're going to be, if you can't make that switch in your mind, this is not a role for you. You're not going to be successful in it. And so that's the honest advice I give some of my peers. And it's better to give them that advice than to let them go into the deep and drown. Right. For me, I have that mix of, big company. Like I said, I work with GE, Kaiser, Oracle, but I've also worked in startups and scale-ups. So I'm well balanced. But for those that have just worked in large enterprises with big teams and they want to come into this role and they expect to do all the 4 or 5 things that I mentioned, it's going to be hard for them. They can probably only do 2 or 3 of those things. So it's not a role for everybody, but that's how you have to look at it. And then the rest of this stuff is just executing. If you're gonna promise something to somebody, especially a founder who's gonna rely on you, because obviously they have a small team and maybe they need your help in terms of getting an article out or doing a blog post or doing an event or even just helping with go to market. If you're gonna make a promise, you better deliver. Otherwise, you're gonna see as somebody that talks the talk but can't walk the walk, and so that's important as well. And there are a few other things, but I think those are the biggest characteristics. You have to be accessible, responsive, just like in the traditional CISO role. It's not a 9-to-5 job, right? You're always talking to your peers. You're always talking to founders. They're going to need help in the middle of the night because tomorrow they have a board meeting and they need to figure something out for something, and you have to sit there and help them out. And so you have to be accessible as well.
And I think about your role, and it's the context switching, and it's the inherent contradictions in terms of being accessible but protective of your time and prioritizing and following through with things that you promise to people. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how you fit it all into the week. Okay, and then finally, if somebody watching this is early in their security career and I don't know, they're in their 20s or in their 30s, and they're saying that kind of role is my dream position. And when I get to that part of my career, I want to be somebody who'd be considered for this. What advice would you give to those people in terms of their early to mid-career building blocks? What kinds of experiences should they be seeking out in order to make it to where you are?
Yeah, this is a good question. It comes up all the time. Like I said, initially, when I talk to whether it's, somebody that's tenured and want to do this, or somebody who's, a manager, director, maybe deputy, second in line, and is looking to the future. So I have conversations on all, both spectrums. And the answer is the same. The answer is make yourself accessible to founders, to venture firms, be helpful to them, show your value, deliver value. And, when I say make yourself accessible, give them the time, give them half an hour here, give them half an hour there. Don't be taken advantage of. You'll know when they're taking advantage of you. But there's certain things I tell them to watch out for. But at the end of the day, be accessible, be helpful, show value, and then the rest of it will just come to you. You don't even have to go out and seek anything. They'll come to you, they'll ask for your help, and then when the time comes and you're ready, then you basically package yourself up in terms of here's the value that I can create for the firm, right, for the founders, for your LPs. You have those discussions, and that's kind of what I did. I just talked to as many VCs that I had relationships with, and not that I went to them and was looking for a job. I just wanted to pick their brain and say, look, this is what I come with. This is me. This is Al, right? This is what I can bring to the table. Is there a need? Do you have a need for somebody with my expertise and my background? And even though some did, the other part of this is timing, because the salary for a role like this is paid through the management fees of these funds that these VCs build. And so if that's all been spoken for and they're not fundraising, the next round or something is a year, 2 years off, then they don't really have any way of bringing somebody like you on. And so that I faced that quite a bit too, even though they were looking for somebody, the timing wasn't right. So they have to be conscious of that. And those are the kind of discussions I think they need to have with the partners and the MDs. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to being helpful and, doing something that is meaningful for the founders and for those venture firms that invest in them.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, Al, today. It's been a genuine pleasure having you on.
No, this has been really awesome. And if anybody listening, watching this, have any questions, want to, dig into some of these different areas. And like I said, we could spend hours on any one of these topics that we just talked about. So I'm happy to carve out some time and help them out. So
yeah,
that's how I got here. So I want to give back because people help me. I want to help others as well.
Well, what a wonderful thing. All right. Well, great. Well, thank you again, Al. And that just about wraps us up today.
Awesome. Good chatting with you, James.
Take care.
Bye-bye.